All right, so now we're going to take a look at whenever I give you endpoints and I just give you coordinates. So we're going to the graph now. This first one, I'm going to show you without a graph. So pause it and write this down. You do not need to do separate colors here if you do not want to. I'm just very colorful. So if you want to, you're going to see why you don't necessarily need to write these do it in colors. We are going to be labeling our coordinates in a little bit. Pause, write it down. All right, now that you have it written down, we're going to go ahead and start filling in our formula with the information that we're given. Now, the first thing I want you to do, anytime that you have two coordinates and in your formula you have x's and y's, 1's and 2's, I'm telling you right now as a teacher, I do this. This is very, very easy to mess up and put numbers in the wrong places, so you have to pay attention. So x1 means your x coordinate from your first set of coordinates, which is r. So right here, this is x1, so we're going to label x1. So since we're labeling them, you don't necessarily have to use different colors. x2 is going to be the second set of coordinates, the x on the second set. So the second set is over here, s. So this will be your x2. Your y1 goes back to your first point and goes to your y coordinates. So this will be y1. Notice how both of these have a 1. And then y2 over here. Okay, picking up on the pattern. You have a 2 on both of these. So now we'll go to our formula and we'll start plugging in, start substituting in. Okay, so here the 2 is going to remain the same. All we're doing is exactly what we did in the other video. We have to do it twice. We have to do it for our x coordinate and we have to do it for a y coordinate. So it's the same thing we just did with our previous formula. This one right here, it's just now we have a y coordinate also. So you're going to have two different numbers with a comma in between them, okay? So x1, look up here. What do we have for x1? Negative 9. We're going to add what was x2. Let's go find x2. Oh, x2 was 8. Over here, y1, we're going to go find y1 right here. It's 3. And then we will add y2. Here's y2, negative 7. So now I'm going to drop the colors off completely, and I'm going to do my math here. So when you do these, whenever you add the two together, negative 9 plus 8, you're going to wind up at a negative 1, and then we have that divided by 2, comma, 3 plus a negative 7 will give us a negative 4 over 2, because we're going to divide it by 2. So if you notice here, we can leave it at 1/2, but if I want you to graph, it might be easier to go ahead and simplify these out into decimals. So your midpoint is going to wind up being at negative 0.5, comma, negative 4 divided by 2, negative 2. And this will end up being your midpoint. Okay? Okay, the next part, you're going to want a little piece of graph paper, or if you don't have graph paper still, again, you really need to get some graph paper because we're going to be using a lot of graph paper. If you don't have the graph paper, you can just draw out a graph on your paper. So push pause and go ahead and copy this down. A is going to be at 0, positive 1. Okay, and I can write that down over here for you. A is at 0, 1. B, I believe, was at 6, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. So go ahead and pause, copy that down. Welcome back. I'm going to show you finding the midpoint using a rise over run. So even if you're given 2 points and you don't want to use that formula, you can graph the 2 points on graph paper and you can do your rise over your run. We know that if we find our rise over our run, that's getting us to B. Well, if we want to go halfway, then we want to go our rise halfway and our run halfway. So what we can do is we can figure out, well, what is our rise to meet up with B? We'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our rise would be 7. Okay, so we put our rise as 7. And then our run is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we take half of both of these, or divide by 2, half of 7 is 3.5. Half of 6 is 3. Now, usually we don't see fractions written like that, but in this case, this just tells us where we need to go. So if we're going to rise half of 7, we're going to rise 3.5. So I'm going to take another color. Let me go blue. And I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3.5. Okay? And then I'm going to run 3, and that should land me directly on the line. 1, 2, 3. And then I could find my midpoint. So your midpoint will be at positive 1, 2, 3, positive 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Okay? So there's a couple different ways you can find a midpoint when using coordinates.